नाथ दयाळु संखेश्वर परम कृपाळु बळको नाग उगार्यो ओ करुणा निधान दिल मां क्षमानी खाण कर मठियो दीने तार्यो सकल जगत नाथा सकल जगत ना तात प्यास नैणों नी बुझावो रे सकल जगत ना सकल जगत ना तात प्यास नैणों नी बुझावो रे मुखलड़ू बतावो रे पूनम नी छेड़ा पूनम नी छेड़ात दादा दर्शन देवा आवो रे पूनम नी छेड़ा लोहन कंचन करता पत्थर ने पारस करता एवी अद्भुत माया हूँ तो पामर प्राणी अबूध ने अज्ञानी प्रभु अर्जी सुन जो मारी सुन जो मन नी बात दादा गलडू ना दुभावो रे सुन जो मन नी बात सुन जो मन नी बात दादा गलडू ना दुभावो रे मुखलड़ू बतावो रे पूनम नी छेड़ा पूनम नी छेड़ात दादा दर्शन देवा आवो रे पूनम नी छेड़ा संखेश्वरनी धरती भक्तों ना मनड़ा हरती जय आवे धाम नीचे दर्शन नमनी छेड़ात दादा दर्शन देवा आवो रे
All right, great. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining. And today is my turn. Just give me 1 second. I'll switch my Wi-Fi and then we'll get started. Okay, good. So, today it's my turn. So today's topic is Jain philosophy compared with others. Uh, Let me get started with the context. So first thing is that in an effort to keep everything simple, I have tried to um not include a lot of nuances. However, we know that there are like a bunch of sects in every philosophy, every religion, etc. But I have tried to keep it simple for everyone to follow and understand. Um, and also, a lot of this has been generated by LLMs. I just used Google Canvas to put a bunch of this together and then posted it. Um, but regardless, I'm sorry if there will be any mistakes. But the main objective that we are trying to this session is I want to try and highlight the uniqueness and the depth of one of the most valuable inheritance that we have um, in the form of Jain philosophy. And though we have all got it for free, uh, okay, wait, I'm seeing some messages. So Payal is saying part of the screen is blocked. Is it still blocked or is it okay now?
Yeah, it's blocked. There's like a box covering the screen.
Is it in the center or which side is it?
Yeah.
Okay, let me close the background windows and check. Try again. Can you see now?
It's There's still a box appearing at the top. I think it's the sharing bar. Maybe you can try dragging it.
Oh, did it move now?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So here I'm mentioning that we have inherited this for free, but not really for free. Does someone want to take a shot at uh, explaining why is it free but also not for free? That we have inherited this Jain philosophy as part of this community, which we have inherited for free. Like there is no charge that we are paying, but actually it's also not free. Any idea, anyone?
Priyank Kapurva here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel we might have done something well in the last Janam that gave us this opportunity, and we should take the best opportunity this Janam so we can achieve moksha. Thank you.
That's pretty accurate, yeah. So it said that a lot of our previous good deeds and punya would have come to fruition for us to be able to have this birth in a family or in a setup where we have Jain philosophy as an inheritance. So though it is for free, but it actually is a lot of value that we have paid for it, which we don't realize. So with that context, let me now get started on the topic. So here, what I've tried to do is I've tried to list some things that we all can easily agree on, and let us go through these things one by one. So the first thing is that everyone has limited time in this life, and no one knows how much time they have. Right? This is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We know that everyone who takes birth will eventually die, and we don't know when. The second important thing over here is that when one passes away, all the material that they earned in this life is left behind, including our body. So everything that we currently strive to achieve and accomplish and gather, all of this will be left behind. And we have a lot of our elders who we have seen like live their life, and some of them pass away and they don't take anything with them. Theoretically, you could say that like, oh, like I would, if I died rich, I there's a chance that I might get born in a rich family and I'll stay rich. But like we don't know if someone is actually keeping that account and looking at your net worth when you die and giving you that net worth when you take the next birth. So that's the second one. The third one is that there is no one assured formula or measure for either of these, right? For success, for happiness, for contentment. And this also is very easy to um, see the evidence of. Like some people who might not be as rich, which generally people consider as a measure for success, but they might still be happy, or they might be successful in their own endeavors or in their own targets. Similar thing for happiness, right? People might be rich, but they might not be beautiful, and they might want to be beautiful, so they are unhappy, and vice versa. Like we can discuss this at length, but I think generally people will get this. And then the number four item is that the only real choice we have is how do we want to spend the limited time that we have. So if everyone agrees with number one, then number four also becomes real. That what essentially is in your control. What is in your control is that how do you want to spend this limited time that you have. And that in turn leads to the ultimate question, which is that what should I spend my time on? Which is also in a way asking what is the purpose of my life or this life. Now, before we move ahead, I want to take a pause and see that if any one of you has any disagreements with any of these 4 points, um, or any thoughts around why some of this might not be true, or any nuances that you want to add. Because if this is clear, then rest of the presentation or rest of the fundas are very easy to go through. So I'm taking a quick pit stop and seeing like if anyone has any inputs on any of these 4 points. I think it's pretty straightforward, right? Like these are all well-known things. So let's assume that everyone agrees. And then this number five, which is the question that we ultimately all of these 4 points lead to, is that what is our purpose? Now, when you think about what is the purpose of life, right? There is an old saying which goes by, you can answer this question only when your stomach is full. It's not in English, so I've just translated it. But in Hindi, it's like something like your stomach needs to be full if you want to think about purpose or philosophy in general. And what happens is that many a times when you're young, this question will rarely cross your mind because there are a lot of these milestones which have been built for us as we do our schooling, as we do our uh, college, university, then get into our job, we get some of our promotions. So then we rarely ask this question because that becomes our purpose for that period of time. So my purpose when I am in school is to get good marks, then it's to get into a good college, then it's about getting a good job, and within job I want to increase my pay, etc. uh, and some people, they continue to keep this as their purpose, which also we'll cover as one of the philosophies, where their work and the impact that they derive from their work becomes their purpose. So that's like one thing to note, that it depends a little bit upon the time and stage of life you are at when you have to think about purpose. The other thing is that finding your purpose is a little bit no, more of philosophy rather than science. And we all would be really happy and glad if everything was answered by science. But there are a lot of limitations in terms of what science can answer. And these are not just like the philosophical questions that science cannot answer, but inherently in the speed of light itself, there are a lot of limitations where it is theoretically difficult for us to say that we will explore the whole universe or we will know the truth about the universe by exploring it. Because, and I can give you a lot of these like details about what these are, but to give you a quick gist, like theoretically, if you have to travel distances between two planets or even two solar systems and then two galaxies, you'll have to travel almost at the speed of light or close to speed of light. And that will increase your mass by a lot, by some factor of 10 raised to something. And then that will in turn require a lot of energy. So, and there are other concepts around this same thing, the speed of light constraint being applied to the cosmic lag, which is the time between communication that you will receive, the cosmic time machine, uh, in terms of how time is experienced, etc., etc. But anyways, all this is to say that there is a good chunk of things that science will answer, which is quite good, evidence-based, but they focus more on the how and the what part. But the why part eventually is something that philosophy answers better than science. And perhaps maybe science will never answer. But okay, while answering this question, what is the purpose of life? The good news is that many people have thought of this question and laid out the paths through philosophy or religion. And it's important to understand the difference between these two, which we'll spend some time on. But this slide is to say that this particular question, a lot of people have felt based on these four assumptions or four truths about life. Everyone has kind of stumbled upon the fifth one, which is the ultimate question, and a lot of people have answered it in their own way, and we'll explore that today. So, as I was saying, it's very important to understand the difference between philosophy and religion. And let us spend maybe 5 minutes on this through a couple of slides. So, the first thing is that philosophy has a equivalent term in Hindi or in like an Indian language, but religion doesn't have any Indian word. The closest that one could argue the word to religion is called dharma, but dharma itself doesn't mean what religion means. So let's start with religion. So religion essentially is a term used like which the origin of the term is from religare and it means to bind to God, and it is used for a group of people who worship one particular God. So they have one sacred text, one prophet who had some revelations. They believe in supernatural powers. And this is something which is accepted through faith, which is a belief held without need for any empirical evidence. However, philosophy on the other side, it is more exploratory and driven by logic and reason. And as we progress, you will also see how both of these are different. This is more like a textbook definition. But philosophy encourages you to question and it tries to form some logical arguments and arrive at conclusions based on rational justification. So it's important to note that philosophy is not just blind faith that you have to have belief, but it's a process of understanding something through reason and rational justification. It doesn't mean that it will prove it to you. So philosophy will not be able to prove something to you, but it will be able to give you enough reason behind saying what it is saying. So that's like a nuance that we need to keep in mind. And then continuing further between philosophy and religion, as I was saying, the foundation is reason, logic, critical inquiry. Over here, it is faith, sacred text. Methodology wise, it is about questioning, argumentation, belief, worship. Source of truth, which is important, it is human intellect and experience. And then here it is divine authority. And then ultimate goal, again, is to understand the world, the cosmic nature, etc., wisdom, clarity of thought. And over here it is salvation and enlightenment. Now, the reason why I was highlighting this difference is that Jain Dharam or Jain Darshan, as it is called, is actually a philosophy. It is not a religion. Even though right now in the modern context we use the word religion and the word Jainism, But Jainism technically is a term that has been given to us from the Western is like influence on labeling some of the Indian practices as religions, whereas technically it's not religion. But we'll dwell more upon that on that point in a few slides. Right now, what I want to emphasize on this one is that Jain darshan is one of the oldest, which itself is a big achievement. Like we have one of the oldest continuous surviving philosophies. And I think many of you must have seen this, or if you have not, I'm sure that every sect, like we have Shwetambar, Digambar, within that we have a lot of different sects. A lot of these sects can map their Acharya lineage all the way to Mahavir Swami. So you will find tons of them who will have actual names of individual people who have been acharyas in that sect, and you can trace it back all the way to Mahavir Swami, at least, which even like science or historians agree was around 600 BC. And then before that, for 800 BC, there are archaeological evidences that show that. And then in Jain Darshan, it's like even much more older. But we don't want to dwell on that right now. But even like if you take 600 BC as the starting point, or 800 or around that, still it is one of the oldest. Uh, Along with Jain Darshan, in terms of the philosophies, you have something which we have categorized as a broad bucket of scientific materialism. This essentially means that, and we will come to a little bit of what these means in the next slide. However, this gives, or this is like the modern outlook that most of us might be living with. And within scientific materialism, it's all about like evidence-based, proof-based discoveries, and not relying any on faith or any supernatural expectations. It's like what you see is what it is. That is what you can summarize it in. And then the one sub part of it is secular humanism, which also I'll come to. So I'm not like spending a lot of time on this. We'll talk about what they are in a minute. But if you look at the bottom half, which is the religion part of this page, now, and the reason why we are calling these as religion is also that all of these believe that there is like some supernatural power which can grant you boons, or which can fulfill your wishes, which is not present in the ones which are there on the top. So ones which are there in the bottom, though Hinduism or Sanatan Dharam, people will argue that it is also a philosophy. However, over here, at least like the wide majority of people believe that whatever God they pray to, they can change their fate, change their luck, which is completely different than what philosophy believes. So hence, I have categorized these into the bottom bucket. So on the left hand side, you see the earlier Indic philosophies of Sanatan, Buddhism, Judaism also. Like, all these dates, I think people can argue whether 2000 BC is accurate or it is 2500 BC. But as I said, like a lot of these is from LLM, so we don't need to dwell much on that. And then you have Christianity, which came around 2000 years ago. And then Islam is kind of the newest, and Sikhism, which is a smaller group of people, but that is also new. And there are a bunch of others like Baha'i. There are some Chinese religions also, which I have not included over here because majorly China is a atheistic country now. So I don't know what is like the coverage or what the followers of these Taoism or Confucianism, etc. But let's now summarize again. So for today's discussion, when we are going to talk about purpose of life across these philosophies and religions, we'll restrict ourselves to these uh, seven odd. So three on the top, and then Hinduism, Buddhism, and Sikhism as the other three, and then the other Christianity, Islam, Judaism will club them. So I'll show you how we'll club them in a minute. But this timeline view was mainly to highlight that Jain philosophy is one of the oldest continuously surviving philosophies, which I think none of us appreciate as much as we should be appreciating. Now let's talk about what is purpose of life defined in each of these? And I'll come to the philosophies as the second thing. Let's discuss the religions first. So Hinduism or Sanatan Dharam, what does it say about purpose of life? So in Hinduism, it says that to achieve self-realization by piercing the veil of worldly illusion, understanding that one's individual soul, Atma, is one of the ultimate reality, which is Brahma. So this is the main concept of Hinduism, that you unite your soul with the universe, which is the term as Brahma, and that is your ultimate objective. And there are various paths. There is like a lot of nuances around this. So I am like not going to it deliberately right now. But you can generally say that majority of Hindus would believe that their soul, uniting their soul with the overall universal consciousness, is their purpose. Then Buddhism. In Buddhism, the purpose is to end all sufferings by eliminating personal desire and attachment, which is achieved by following the eightfold path to attain nirvana. Again, I am not an expert on the eightfold path, or I don't know a lot of details. There are a lot of similarities between how Buddhism and Jainism have some concepts. Um, but here it is like similar to Jainism, to eliminate all personal desires and attachment. Now, one question that would come to a lot of people's minds is that why is Buddhism not under philosophy and why is it under religion? So the difference over here is that Buddhists still believe that Buddha as an entity or as a person is the sole person who has delivered the sermons or the truth, which is different from um our understanding of the 24 Tirthankaras, and each one of them having achieved Keval Gnan, etc. Right? So that's the reason why Buddhism also falls. And um there are more nuances around it, but let's like for simplicity keep it like that. But it is about reducing your personal desire and attachment. So that similarity still exists. Sikhism, again, it's a very small one, so we'll do it quickly. To achieve spiritual union with the one creator, Vaheguru, by overcoming ego through devotion, honest work, and selfless service. So this devotion aspect again is the key over here, because they also believe that Vaheguru will be able to bless them, etc. Now, all these Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Islam, Judaism. So the reason why they are called Abrahamic is that they all originated around the same place, and they all believe that there is like a prophet, uh, or not even a prophet, but there's a character called Abraham in each of their philosophies or religions, and then there is like a prophet who has delivered the message of God, etc. Now, the difference between these three is that in Christianity is more focused on the love and service of God, and by following his teachings, attain eternal salvation with and union with him in the afterlife. Afterlife. So it's about love, service of God. In Islam, it is actually about submission to the will of Allah by following the guidance of Quran in preparation for the final judgment. So this word Islam itself means submission. So that's a big difference between Christianity and Islam. And then Judaism, again, it's a smaller of the three, to honor the God by serving him. It's very similar to the other. However, one point that I just remembered, which I forgot highlighting, is the relative size of each of these. So as you see that Christianity right now is the largest with around 2.5 billion people, 30% of the world. Islam being the second largest with around 24% of the world. And then Sanatan Dharam being the third, which is around 15%. And the secular humanism, which we have not discussed yet, is also around now 15% and growing. So that's to give you a sense of which one of these are bigger, right? So Christianity number one, Islam number two, Hinduism and the secular humanism are both around the same, number three. So just to recap, these are the purposes, right? So in Hinduism, it's about uniting your soul with Brahma. Buddhism is about eliminating personal desire and attachment to achieve nirvana. Sikhism is about overcoming ego through devotion. Christianity is love for God. Islam is submission to the will of God. Judaism is also again service of God. Now let's come to the philosophies. So the first one is Jain darshan, and over here the ultimate purpose is described as to purify the soul of all karmic matter through absolute non-violence and self-control, thereby achieving liberation from the cycle of rebirth. Now, the big part over here is the self-control or the self-effort part. So everything over here has to be done by you as an individual soul with your own self-effort. Um, and it's about the karmic matter and the cycle of rebirth. So this is what has been mentioned as the purpose of life, to purify of soul and achieve liberation by achieving moksha. Now the other two which are more interesting and we need to spend a minute is scientific materialism. So this is where one believes that or the purpose that this group of people think about is that there is no inherent cosmic purpose to life. Any purpose is self-created by the individual to find fulfillment and understanding in the physical world. So they reject like any supernatural purpose or any like cosmic purpose of sorts, and they are more focused on the evidence-based or material-based fulfillment and more individual ways of figuring it out. And a branch of this scientific materialism is secular humanism, which has also been becoming popular in the last few decades. Over here, it says that to find personal fulfillment by using reason and empathy to advance human well-being and create a more just and ethical world. So here, and I think a lot of us fall into this bucket where we believe that we won't do anything bad to others. We will be kind. The purpose is to be kind to others, to help others. The help others part is what a lot of us think of our purpose, and that is encompassed in this empathy to advance human well-being, right? So yeah, I think scientific materialism and secular humanism, you can think of both of these as things that where you don't believe in any kind of supernatural stuff. Whatever is proven by science is what you believe in, and then the humanism part adds a lot of this ethics around kindness, helping others, etc. So this is a little bit of a summary of what each of these philosophies say. Now, the other thing to highlight over here is I don't think there is any other big philosophy that we are missing. This is it. Like all of humanity till 2025, these are the few top philosophies or religions that we have today. And this is like maybe a decent summary of what they believe. There will be nuances in Christianity also. There will be some sects in Islam. There will be some sects, etc. But broadly, this is what they would believe. Now, before we go ahead, any questions or anything is not clear, because I want to ensure that we spend some time right now before we progress. If there are any questions or if there are any contradictions that you want to discuss. And while you think of that, I know this might sound very abstract that why are we discussing all this, like what's Jainism in this, but I think at the end I'll try to connect it back with uh, Jainism. But I'm just trying to lay out that this is what collective knowledge of humanity has produced till date in terms of philosophies or religions and purpose of life. Okay, so if there are no further questions, then let's do some polls. Now, these polls are interesting because through answers of these polls, you will also figure out where do you lie out of these 7, 8 odd philosophies and religions that we just described. We'll be able to understand, you will be able to understand where you lie. So please ensure that you remember each of the answers that you give. Um, so the first poll, and let me see if I can launch it myself. Yeah, I think I can launch it. So, do you believe in a non-physical soul? And before you answer, just understand that soul here means an individual entity which changes form but cannot be experienced by our five senses. And by changes form, I mean that it changes body, right? And It is also said to be eternal and conscious on its own. So do you believe in a non-physical soul which is conscious and uh, which cannot be experienced by the five senses? So I'm seeing people have started answering. We have majority as yes, one no, and one cannot choose. So everyone who is answering, please remember this answer of yours, that the first one was yes, because um we'll be trying to see where we fit on the next slide. Okay, so this is where we are. So 21 of us feel that it's yes, one person no, and one person cannot say. Now, the second question is around, do you believe in a creator God? And by creator God, what we mean over here is like a omnipotent, omniscient being who can grant you boons. So that's the key thing over here, that that person or that entity has created the world as well as they can grant you boons. But and no need to like be politically correct or like try to align your answers to what Jain Dharam says. I just want you to mention whatever you believe. That if you believe that there is a God who can grant you wishes or who can fulfill your wishes, then yeah, so be it. So you should answer yes. Um, yeah, okay. So a bunch of people have answered. It's good. Again, the count is around 23 now. But this time it's a good mix of yes and no. So 8 people have answered yes, 14 people have answered no, and one person is cannot choose. Let me share quickly. Again, repeating myself, but remember this: the first one, what do you chose? What you chose, like yes or no, and the second one also. And then the third and the final poll is: do you believe in afterlife or rebirth? Again, this is also something that people cannot prove to you, but what is your belief is the question, right? Will you take rebirth in a different body? That's one philosophy or one school of thought. And then the second school of thought is that there'll be a judgment day, there's no rebirth. Uh, and then this also implies, if you believe in rebirth, then it also implies that you believe in karma. Because like everyone who is born with different capabilities and skill sets, so that can prove karma. Yeah, okay. So we have got the usual responses, I guess. And here I am seeing that a lot of you have answered yes, and couple of people have said cannot choose, which is also completely fine, right? If you don't know for sure, then you can choose that. But okay, now that a bunch of you have answered, let me now show you where you lie. So the columns over here are each of the 3 questions, and the yes, no is like the cross and the circle. So if you believe that there is a non-physical soul, however, there is no creator God, uh, and you believe in afterlife, so this whole like first row, then your philosophy aligns with Jain Darshan. However, I saw that a bunch of you believed that there is a non-physical soul and there is a creator God and there is an afterlife. Then those people who had all yeses, they either would fall under Hinduism or Sikhism. Now, I think it might have given you some clarity, but let me also explain a little bit about where some of these differ. So if you look at the first column, do you believe in non-physical soul? So everyone apart from the so-called atheist, like the materialistic and the scientific materialism and secular humanism, which we can also call as atheist, and Buddhism, they don't believe in soul, but everyone else believes in a soul. And the nuance around Buddhism also is that it's not that it doesn't believe in a soul, However, like I'm not an expert, so I don't want to also mention that I understand what Buddhism says, but in the bottom, in the footnote, you can read actually what ChatGPT told me. Uh, they believe that it's like a mind stream that continues after death and distinguishes itself from the, and it also doesn't believe in a individual soul. I think they have something like a stream. But anyways, that's the soul part. Then in terms of a creator God, so only the religions, like the Abrahamic religions, Sikhism and Buddhism. Buddhism also has a nuance. They say that Brahma is not technically an entity. It's not a personal God. It's like a formless structure. But at least they believe in someone created the universe, which is Brahma. And Abrahamics, yeah, they believe their gods created. And even Sikhism has that belief. And then afterlife, so here then again there's a difference. So the Abrahamics don't believe in afterlife. They believe in what they call as a judgment day, or like one day where the God will decide what will happen with you after you die. And similarly, the atheists, they also don't believe in afterlife. They just believe whatever is here and now is reality. Um, So hope that gave a little bit of perspective to everyone. I know there are a lot of messages coming, but I don't know if I'll be able to answer. I have a bunch of content also that I want to cover. Would atheists fall under Yeah, atheists will fall under secular humanism. So Sonak, right? Yeah. I don't know how to answer. I believe there are many energies in the universe that can support us. Okay, I think we have passed that part, but we'll come to it again. Wouldn't you be more likely to be instead of creator? It could be some eternal energy. Okay, hi, slightly off topic. How do Jains believe the world is created? So Jains don't believe that the world is created. Yeah, okay, Anish answered that. Perfect. So Jains believe that it is eternal. And we'll also discuss that about like specifically Jain. But now I'll just skim through some of these details. We don't need to spend a lot of time. We are already at 9:40. So, and a lot of this already now you guys have understood, and I think you can also read offline. I'll just touch upon some bullet points. So, does a creator God exist? First three say no, no, no. Hinduism say yes, Brahma is the ultimate source. Buddhism, all of this we have discussed. So, anyway, but the important thing to note over here is what is there in the bottom in green. So, to the best of my knowledge, Jain Darshan has zero stories where an Arihant or a Siddh has given a boon or a supernatural power to anyone. So that's the main difference between Hindu or Sanatan Dharam versus Jain Dharam also in this context. That you might have some Dev Devi who can grant you some wishes within Jain Dharam also, but Dev Devis are not the ones we aspire to be. What we aspire to be is Arihant or Siddh, and they don't or never have seen a story where they have given some supernatural powers. The other interesting thing that you should read if you're interested is this Epicurean paradox. So this paradox or this theory tries to negate the fact that there is a supernatural God which is all powerful, all knowing, which is what these Abrahamic religions believe, and the God which is all loving. It takes the example of evil exists and it drills down. I will not go through this in detail. So this is something that you can, if you are interested, read about. Then, in terms of the soul, uh, so Jain Darshan believes and it believes that it is eternal, individual, conscious substance. Scientific materialism, secular humanism, they don't believe. Hinduism also believes in Atma. So everyone apart from Buddhism actually believes in Atma, and obviously the atheists. Um, and the Abrahamic religions and Sikhism, what they believe is that this soul is a part or created or originating from God themselves. So they don't think that it's an individual entity which is conscious by itself. They believe that it's originated from God. Now, the other thing to highlight again in this is that Jain darshan might be the only darshan which says that every soul has a potential to be God or Jinendra. And this was something that Yesterday also got discussed a little bit, day before yesterday, I guess. Um, and this is very unique about Jain Darshan. And maybe to add over here also is that I think Jain Darshan or Jain Dharma is the one of the only ones where any layman, you and me or anyone with the right set of caution or practices can touch the idol of God or can do puja wherever that is practiced. There are, at least I don't know of like many other religions which have that any lay person by following certain steps can actually touch God or do a puja by themselves, which is also very unique about Jain Darshan and Jain Dharma. The third thing is discussing this question about how liberation is achieved. So again, here you will see a little bit of nuance. Um, Jain Darshan believes that it's only through one's own effort by purifying the soul of karma. Scientific materialism, secular humanism, they don't consider this concept relevant. Uh, like I said, their goal is fulfilling life here and now. And a lot of us might be in this bucket. However, the thing to note is that all of this is very, very temporary. Like your lifespan, my lifespan, any of our lifespan in the whole river of time is very, very small. So thinking that this is it, I think that's also not like the best strategy. Hinduism is all again about gaining knowledge and uniting yourself with Brahma. Buddhism is through the self-discipline eightfold path, and then the divine grace of God. Now, one other thing to highlight over is that Jain Darshan also doesn't believe that only by doing punya you will achieve liberation, because it wants or it requires both your punya and pap to be zero. So you have to ensure that uh, whatever punya you also gain or you create, that also becomes zero. And we can discuss about how that happens, etc., but not for today. However, just understand that both have to be zero. That's important. Now, this is again one other important difference between Jain Darshan and other darshan, that what is the supreme moral principle of that particular belief. In Jain Darshan, it is about absolute non-violence, which also leads to the other ethics that we have. Scientific materialism about like doing experiments, no morality, whatever is seen and evidence based, only that is valid. Secular humanism about reason, empathy. I'll not go through all of these, but this is what like in the Abrahamic ones, it's all about service to God, submission to God. In Hinduism, it is about dharma or moral duty. So these are the moral principles or the topmost principles in that particular belief. Now, let's recap where we started and where we are. We only have now 12 minutes. So we started with these four uh, realities of life, right? And then we came to the fifth point, which was the ultimate question, that what should I do with my time? Because everyone realizes that they have limited time. That is the only asset that they have. A lot of the things that we are doing today are for things that we are going to leave behind and temporary. Like we are spending maybe 95% of our time or 99.9% of our time making a career, creating a name and establishing ourselves or getting popularity, fame, etc. But all of that we are going to leave behind. And yeah, we think that that is giving us success and happiness, but it is, I don't know, everyone has their own definition of that. So then we came to the question of what is the ultimate purpose. And now, based on whatever we have discussed so far, let's summarize what Jain Darshan says is the purpose. So here also comes a concept of this time and space. Uh, so if you can think of the left-hand side diagram, right? This is what, like the boundary of this is what Jain Darshan says is the whole universe, the Chaud Raj Lok. So this space, how Jain Darshan puts it, is that this space goes through cycles of Avsarpini Kal and Utsarpini Kal. So it goes up and down. So within this space, there are like these time cycles where good things happen, and then there are time cycles with bad things happen, then again they become good, again they become bad. So this whole you can imagine this to be like a continuous sine wave of sorts, right? Like, so if I have to draw it, so suppose that time is running in the forward direction in one direction, then this particular space is going through these cycles of up, down, up, down, up, down. And our soul over here is taking different births during these cycles, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. And this will keep on going forever, and it has been going on forever. Now, the purpose is to liberate our soul from this whole space-time equation and take it on the top to Siddhashila, where the space stops to transform along with time. I don't know if I'm able to explain this well. It's quite tough or quite complicated to understand uh, and even explain. But this essentially is the purpose as defined by Jain Darshan, that time moves in one direction, space keeps transforming in cycles as time moves in one direction. And the purpose of life is to free our soul from this space and time equation, which leads to rebirth, and move to Shila, which doesn't have this. And honestly, like I have been trying to wrap my head around other philosophies, trying to understand, okay, what's all everything that's out there, which is a little bit of like how this also presentation came about. But I have not seen any better explanation of purpose of life, or even purpose of multiple lives, so to say, if you believe in rebirth. Uh, and the other thing that you should understand is that the understanding of this, or the knowledge of this, or the acceptance of this is a part of what we call as Samyak Darshan. So Samyak Darshan, as many of you know, is described as right faith or right vision. But actually the darshan word in this means the Jain darshan. And once you understand that the concepts laid out in Jain darshan are the ones that you believe in, that's when you can say that you have progressed in the path towards achieving Samyak Darshan. So this clarity of purpose of life is part of Samyak Darshan, and that in turn is part of this 14 Gunsthanak, which is there on the right hand side. And as you see, I think the fourth one to like the 1 to 4 talk about darshan, like Samyak Drishti. When you see this word which is on number 4, Samyak Drishti, that means that uh, again, I'm not an expert. I'm just giving you my interpretation. I'm sure each of these things are very deep, but at our level right now, you can think of it as having this Samyak Drishti means that you have understood all the concepts which lead to this particular conclusion, that the purpose of life is to free the soul from this space-time equation, which is the continuous rebirth that we are going through in this Chaud Rajlok, and move to Siddhashila. So yeah, I think that was a lot of the content that I had. Now I'll just quickly skim through, and then we'll have maybe a couple of questions, if at all. Okay, sorry, let me just project back. Now, this is again something that I have also discovered recently, and I just wanted to share with all of you, that there are these terms that we use, right? Jainism, Jain Dharma, Jain Darshan. So what is the right one, or what exactly are they? And I spoke about this a little bit, that Jainism is a Western terminology that has been given to us, and I completely understand that right now in the modern day when we're interacting with everyone, we are using this term. But I just want you to know that this is a term which has not originated from us. which is important to know. Jain Dharma, again, that term is also like Hindu Dharma, Jain Dharma. So Dharma is more about like way of life, about fulfilling your moral duties, understanding a little bit about all of those things, rituals, etc. But Jain Darshan is where I think like we as what we want to believe as like analytical thinkers, critical thinkers, we should focus on and we should understand because it is very deep. Trust me, like Jain Darshan, it's like phenomenal what people at that time, like imagine yourself being in like 600 BC. There is nothing like today. We do like ikasta and we do some tap and like even small things like saying that we only use boiled water after having like DoorDash and Uber Eats and all of these facilities. Like you're literally producing magic. Like we feel that we are doing a lot of big deeds by doing some of these things. But imagine like people at that time realized that this is the path that they want to take. They defined everything, they codified everything. I can't wrap my heads around like how did they do this, but all this to say that Jain darshan is the real thing. It's not about the rituals, not about going to temple, not about like a lot of these things, but it's about understanding this philosophy, understanding the darshan, and getting yourself on the path of Samyak Darshan. And just to give you a glimpse of how deep this philosophy is, right? Again, I did this to Chat GPT only. I just told Chat GPT like give me 50 list of 50 things that Jain Darshan or Jain philosophy has given meanings to or described in detail or has like a lot of nuances around, all codified and documented. And this page gives you 50 of the fundamental principles, and many of these you will recognize as you read through this. But the beauty of it is that like our forefathers and the Kevalis and the knowledgeable people, they have actually thought about all of this, and it is very difficult for you to also negate any of this. I can give you two very simple examples. Back then, at that time, we classified living beings as beings with five senses. And I don't think you can give me a sixth sense. Like sixth sense is what people will say sixth sense, but there is actually no other sense. Like you cannot say that bite or the texture of what I feel in my teeth or tongue is also a sense. Etc. All of that and that. Then there are these eight karmas. It's very difficult to think about anything after that. So all this to appreciate the fact that they have. And this is about fundamental principles. This is knowledge and knowledge and consciousness again is like a different level of what things they have put in the scriptures. And I have not read through all of these. I have just copy pasted this literally just to bring out the fact that understanding Jain darshan is not about doing the rituals or doing or like some of the limited things that we have been right now exposed to or we have gotten through our childhood, etc. But it is about actually understanding these things. And a lot of this is like spectacular. That's like the easiest way to put it. Again, this karma and bondage have their own type of, and this just is a list of things. Obviously, the karma and the spiritual beings and realms, these are a little bit abstract. But if you look at knowledge, consciousness, a lot of this you can day to day think about how you can imbibe these values, as etc. etc. But okay, I will now finally take a pause. जिनाज्ञा विरुद्ध काही पण बोलाયું હોય તો મિચ્છામી ડુક્કડમ. And let me now see the chat very quickly. How do Jains? Okay, that's done. For Jains, how did the world came into existence? Okay. What step are we at today? Okay, Anish has answered a bunch of these. That's good. All right, all right. I think it's great. Anyone has any live question that they would want to ask?
Priyank bhai, I have one.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I think in the pursuit of achieving moksha, what is maybe one or two things you would recommend us to do starting today?
Again, like I'm no one to recommend anything to anyone. I myself am like very, very crude and like pappy in a lot of sense. Uh, so I really think that you should like find someone who has. So the other thing is now which we don't realize is that the Panch Parmeshti that we have, right? The two the two Dev Tattva and the three Guru Tattva, Acharya, Upadhyaya, and Sadhu. They are the right ones to ask these questions because they have chosen, and they couldn't have chosen this without knowing what we just discussed about. So they have given up everything in their life. They have chosen that path because they have realized Samyak Darshan, or they have like understood some part of this Samyak Darshan. So my recommendation would be that you please like talk to some sadhu Bhagwant and Rishi, Rishi, like who is now a sadhu. One of the things that he had told when someone asked him a similar question was that these sadhus and acharyas, they know based on your individual personality and preference that what will push you towards this path. So I can give us some generic thing like you should chant Naukar mantra or chant logas, etc. But that it's not for everyone. So this is something that you can ask them, and Acharya Bhagwan, so they actually would know that how they can steer you in the right path, particularly like individually.
Thank
But
you.
amazing. Yeah, great. So we are at time. Um, and I'm really glad that a bunch of us, I'm seeing the participants list now, and I'm seeing some names which are continuously present over these 4 days. This is the fourth day. So I'm glad that we are able to uh, like get together and discuss about Jain philosophy. Uh, and let's continue this. Let's get deeper into our understanding of Jain philosophy. And the one thing that I think everyone should take, if nothing else, is that Jain darshan or Jain philosophy is actually a philosophy that you will need to take that individual effort to understand. Because that's what they have told, that it's an individual effort of the soul. If you think like doing XYZ, you are fulfilling your duty or you are doing your dharma, that's good for you. No disrespect for everyone, but for anyone. But if you want to become serious about it, you will have to pull your socks and get into the depth of it because it is vast and it is very valuable and it will definitely clear a lot of your misconceptions. So with that, I think we'll call it a day. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining, and see you all tomorrow.